Good morning, Dr. Doria. My name is Lee Kwang Wei. Now, I'm going to present the summary of the case Wrong Answer by Rachel Aviv, and what's the key lesson learned, and what should I do if I'm teaching in Park Middle School. From this table, as you can see, there are 3 problems from the story and 3 arguments and personal interpretations. For the first problems and argument is limitation of a dedicated teacher's effort in the changing process of a school. The many Levis, a middle school maths teacher and the protagonist of Arv's story, wants desperately to keep his job precisely because he is so dedicated to serving students whose poverty is so severe that he collects their clothes to wash when they have no other options. He finds himself coaching a host of athletic teams along with the chess club as he devotes his life to trying to help his students surmount the obstacles in their life. But no matter how hard he works to change the students, the learning environment of the students themselves play an important factor for the whole changing process, especially family factors. Nearly all of the kids in Pittsburgh are black, and nearly all of them are impoverished. Many have unstable home situations with drug-addicted parents. In that respect, the district is similar to many others in the United States. Like those other schools, Park was expected to meet state standards on the Georgia assessment, the Criterion Reference Competency Test. If they did not, the teachers and the administrators face public embarrassment, absence of raises, dismissal, and the possible dissolution of the school. Instead of suffering consequences that were inevitable, they cheated by secretly obtaining the answers to the test in advance and erasing students' answers to be sparingly and artfully replaced with correct ones. So, the key lesson learned was the people who say poverty is no excuse for low performance are now using teacher accountability as an excuse for doing nothing about poverty. Broader cultural blindness to poverty and deny of its consequences for children in an increasingly unequal society. If I were the many Levis, I would visit the students' families and try my best to understand their family problems and address them properly. For the second problems and arguments are CRCT is a burden and pressures or motivations to teachers. Based on the author, these are the stories of teachers in the Atlanta public school system facing criminal charges for cheating on state-administered standardized tests. So, what is CRCT? CRCT stands for Criterion Reference Competency Test. It's required by the states of Georgia. CRCT is an assessment of how well students learn content areas of reading, English language arts, maths, science, and social studies. It provides information on strengths and weakness of students and measures knowledge taught in Georgia classroom. The school was previously functioning like daycare, had become a model of what a good school can and should be. In addition, value-added assessment, basing teacher pay on performance, add to the existing pressure teachers and principals already feel to raise test score. The faculty must explain that teacher needed to use data to drive every aspect of instructions. So the lesson that I was learned is the teachers in this story weren't villains, but the institutional structures has tasked them with something that they could not possibly achieve on their own. And so they were taking shortcuts and they were sort of giving up and losing faith in their ability to teach. If I were Dominique Levis, I would not erase the answers because of integrity for educations. However, I would personally give extra tuitions to my students, more obvious and accurate tips to reduce. For my last choice, I would request the Ministry of Education to give a chance to those students who do not do well and appear to resit for the examinations. For the third problems and arguments are: how effective is the NCLB policy when 44 schools cheated along in its implementations? Between 2006 until 2010, before the federal government began offering NCLB waivers from the law onerous requirement of utopian, ever-growing test score, in order to make what was called adequate yearly progress, schools had to raise their cumulative test score higher and higher every year. NCLB is a trap for the middle school where Lewis teaches in two primary ways. His students arrive at his math classes unable to do the work their elementary school test score says they are capable of. After all, the elementary schools have already been cheating on test score well before Aviv students arrive in his middle school classes. And then, once the middle school teachers succumb to temptations and begin erasing and correcting test score answers, they are incensed into continuing the practice into the futures. There is no going back because the school must produce even higher scores the next year and the next. The cheating began in 2006, but each subsequent year it has to escalate in order to keep up with AYP, annual yearly progress, required by No Children Left Behind NCLB. The remarkable and amazing score racked up by the school attracted national attentions, including awards for the principal and a visit from Anne Duncan. It wasn't just Park's Middle that was cheating. In 2010, Georgia Bureau of Investigations agents found, after more than 2,000 interviews, that 44 schools had cheated. Now, many of teachers and administrators are suffering the consequences, including firing and criminal prosecutions. This is a morality tale, but the toxic atmosphere resulting from NCLB as interpreted by the states has made the moral unclear. In lengthy pre-statements, Warren and the other defendants provide a miniature history of the past 20 years in education policy, describing how No Child Left Behind, in conjunction with the district's targets, created an atmosphere in which cheating came to seem like a reasonable option. In what many Americans would call a socialized move, Finland developed a school system that is now the envy of the world. Their goal was not beating everyone else. Improving test score wasn't even on their radar. Their goal was to provide a good solid education for everyone. By focusing on how to improve learning conditions for the average and struggling students, they end up improving learning conditions for all. Rather than try to motivate teachers through treats and tests, they decided to trust their teachers and giving them more. Example like give teachers more allowance, more training, more positive motivations, and so on. So, the Malaysian education system learns from America or Finland. If I were Dominique Lewis, I would raise these concerns to the principal and push him to give feedback to the Council or Ministry of Education since the beginning. I will initiate a campaign with petitions from various schools and teachers to address the ineffectiveness of the policy to the country leaders according. I sincerely appreciate Dr. Doria, your attentions today. And that brings us to the end. Thank you and take care, Doctor.